I was just about to start recording this when it occurred to me that I can share the Amazon link to the novel that I published, novella novel, um, in all my videos, not just the very short one that's a few videos back that I made talking about it. I can share it in the description of all of them, thereby increasing the likelihood that someone will click on it and then either buy the Kindle or paperback version, or if they have Kindle Unlimited, just download it and read it because they found me talking about Are You Afraid of the Dark interesting enough, and they were curious what my fiction would be like. But that I will mention briefly before I start on the episodes. That's what I did last night, which is why I didn't watch Are You Afraid of the Dark until after midnight. I was working on I finished proofreading, polishing my novel slash novella, Cupid Takes a Holiday. I don't know where the delineating line officially is. And then I was working through the very easy Amazon publishing process to put the book up on the Amazon to be purchased, and the link is below. So that's eventually I will do another little video when they send me my copy that I bought, because I got to buy it too, although I get a bit of a discount. And I will do another video to show it off, flip through the pages, and then it will live up where Bo is sitting. Bo will sit over with Susan B. Anthony, and that will be for the rest of the year and for however long until I feel like either I've sold enough or there's really no point. Anyway, 2 episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? First, The Dangerous Soup. Pretty silly title. But it has Nev Campbell in it, Sidney Prescott from the Scream movies, and there's a line at the very end. It's about fear. It starts with everyone going around the circle. Frank is going around the circle, asking everyone, "What are you afraid of? What is your deepest fear?" Probably something that they've brought up before, but his story is about people's fears. And there's a line at the very end because Tucker, the little kid, he's being all macho, like he's not afraid of anything. And as I mentioned, or maybe I just put it in the description, Tucker, even when he's not the storyteller, he tends to make the episodes about him in some way or other. And at the very end, when Frank has this mystery box, and he's challenging people to put their hands through the hole into the black box, and he won't say what's in there. And Tucker ultimately decides not to, and he goes away. And then somebody else says, so what is in the box? And Frank says exactly what Tucker's afraid of: nothing. And on that line, I thought, oh, I recognize that line. I have seen this before. But that's also a line that's in a lot of things, because the unwillingness to, try the unknown, put the hand in the box, be Paul Atreides in Dune, as it were, and brave, putting your hand in the box, is a common thing. And the line mocking people saying they're afraid of nothing, it turned out to be nothing after all. There was nothing to be afraid of. Is a common thing, a common line. So I don't know if that indicates I've seen it before. It's another Dr. Vink episode. It might be. It might be that I just one that I have very, very little memory of, as opposed to this next one, which as soon as the thing happened where I thought, oh yes, I've definitely seen this one before, memories of it came flooding back. So anyway, so the premise of The Dangerous Soup is that there's this restaurant, and it serves soup, $100 a bowl, only 1 per customer per night, and nobody knows the secret to its success. Why is it so great? Nev Campbell plays, I have her name, Nani, and she is the waitress, hostess. She's the hostess, and she's in the very first scene. It's in like a torture room, like a stone room with a chair, and then there's a couple of fans with light coming through the fans, and the fans are turning slowly. It looks like a sort of room where you're going to be interrogated, and it is. And we hear a voice. We see a kind of teenagery type character come in, sits down, gets buckled in, we hear a voice saying, "It knows what you're afraid of." And this gargoyle comes out of the wall, and then suddenly a snake appears, and this guy gets very scared, and then we're in the story. So we open with character Jersey. She doesn't want to touch one of the bus boys, I guess, runs into her and spills a tray full of knives, and she says, "I'm not picking that up. I hate knives." So that's what she's afraid of. And meanwhile, people are, the restaurant patrons, rich, snooty people seemingly, are saying, "No, you don't need to read us the day's specials. We're here for the soup. Of course, we're here for the soup," which means they have $100 to spend on a bowl of soup. I could give you soup for $5, a bigger bowl too. So we open. This is the setup this is the world we're in, and we see that Dr. Vink is the chef behind the soup, and we know him, but the characters in the world don't necessarily know him, other than that he is a chef. So the first we get into what will be the plot with Nev Campbell. I'm going to call her Nev Campbell because I'm so excited that she's in an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark. Interviews this guy Reed, who I thought his name was Paul for much of the episode. His name is Reed, and she interviews him for a new job. There's an opening. People keep quitting the restaurant, and we're not sure why. And Reed is kind of too cool for things. He's that kind of guy, in a rather uninteresting way, especially compared to Nev Campbell really just going for love for her job and trying to keep people upbeat. And she even does he says Dr. Fink, and she says, "No, Vink," with a v, like Dr. Vink himself would do. She's the one who does that in this episode. And she's just all in on it, which makes, I guess it was a character choice with the guy, but her performance made his very pale by comparison. But that was the whole idea of his character. He's not afraid. He's not affected. And that's not interesting to watch. But he doubts the soup could be worth $100, and Vink overhears him during the interview and offers him a sample of the soup. He tastes it, and he decides, "Wow, yes, this is great." And earlier we see Jersey trying to sneak another. I guess they each get one spoonful of it per day if they work there. I was unsure about that. But he agrees, okay, the soup is really great. He gets the job, he takes the job. Meanwhile, Jersey is now, she's getting to the end of her rope. I think she doesn't like the way the customers treat her because she's trying to do the waitress thing of, "Would you like the specials?" "No, you're just here for the soup." Okay. And I think that's getting to her. I'm not entirely sure what's making her to the point where she's so unhappy, but Dr. Vink offers her the opportunity to find out what is the secret of his soup. And so he invites her, and she says, "Oh, okay." And she goes into that room that we saw in the opening scene. She sits down in the chair. She gets stuck. And then the gargoyle comes out and knows what scares you, as Vink says. We now know that it's Vink speaking. And this giant swinging blade descends from the ceiling because she's afraid of knives. And this is a big one. And she starts screaming. And I don't, maybe he usually does this after hours or before hours, but for some reason he does it in the middle of the day, and Reed and Nani hear her screaming, and they go to the room, and they free her, and she runs away, but they also end up freeing the gargoyle itself. And this is where Vink explains the lore of the gargoyle. He stole it, I think, from a tribe in somewhere, but they used it to weaken their enemies because it knew what the enemies were afraid of, and that's the most detail that I retained from that little bit of lore. But basically, it's kind of a god, and he had it trapped and was using it, and because it draws out, it knows what they're afraid of, and then it draws out their fear, and puts it into potion form, I guess, like a little green solution that he drips into the soup, and that's what makes the soup great. Fear is very tasty. So the Reed, he goes out of the restaurant in search because they saw the demon gargoyle thing flee the restaurant, and so he goes out in search for it. But it turns out it's still there with Reed and Nani, and or no, this is no. What happens with Jersey happens, and then Reed, being macho, he ends up going in because he says, "I'm not afraid of anything." And it turns out that something happened with his uncle and the way his uncle died, and what manifests in the room for him is a coffin which opens, and his uncle reaches out and grabs him, and then Nani opens the door and releases the demon. But it doesn't go far. But Vink leaves, and the demon remains. And the only other thing, other than that last line that made me think I recognized this, was they open the door at one point, and it's a glowing room, and a bigger version of the gargoyle is just sitting there. And I remembered that image, but that might be like the kid at the end of the vampire one, the Midnight Neighbors or whatever that was called, the Nightly Neighbors, where it was used in advertising. So I'm not positive. Reed thinks he is protecting Nani by then locking her in the room where the demon used to be locked, but she is claustrophobic, and so she's afraid even before she gets there. And even though the demon's not there, the room starts doing what she's afraid of. So I was a little confused by that. Maybe the demon just controls everything. And the walls start closing in, and Reed is telling her that she has to face her fear, but he knows he has to face his too. It's kind of like a boggart. If they face their fear, or a boggart as portrayed in the Harry Potter movie that I watched last weekend, if they face their fear, they take away its power. And so Reed he says something like, the gargoyle, do me. And so the coffin reappears standing up. I think it opens. His uncle comes out, and he starts yelling at it, like, "I'm not afraid of you." And that makes everything vanish, and everything is fine. And then he goes into the room. He's able to open it. I don't know why he couldn't before. And he's able to open it and go in and rescue Nani, but then they're both in the room, and Vink is back, and the gargoyle is in the room, and he says he's going to keep doing this forever. Nice and threatening. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Frank's mystery box freaks Tucker out, and then he says exactly what Tucker's afraid of: nothing. So that was a fun one, in large part due to, it's interesting lore. It's fun when I realized, oh, it's just a boggart. That was fun connection to make, and Nev Campbell is really just giving it 110% throughout the episode, and Dr. Vink as well. So the next one, Renegade Virus, which I had no memory of that title, and frankly, in the current context, I thought it was going to be about getting sick, like people getting sick. It is about computer viruses, but still I didn't remember. Apparently, Gary, it's his night to tell the story, and Tucker arrives before him and says that his computer has a virus, and it ate his book report twice. So he had to go get an antivirus floppy disk, so that when he, on his way to tell the story, he had to stop by a place and get an antivirus floppy disk so that he could go back after and fix his computer. But then he starts talking about, a virus in a computer is one thing, but what if it leaves the computer? What if it gets into another computer? What if it gets into you, into your head? Which computer viruses don't do, but in Are You Afraid of the Dark stories, they do. And that is what it's about. This Simon, he likes to play pranks on people. He's the main kid. He plays a prank on his friend, and I wasn't paying attention when it happened, but his friend, whose name is Evan, looks like. Is it on the thing? No, it doesn't have either of their names on the Wikipedia. Oh, but I have the cast list for a reason that I will get to. Evan, yes, Evan is the other kid. Okay, so he plays a prank on Evan that makes him late for school, and Evan's very upset and very mad at him. And there's also a girl involved. I guess they both like the girl, but she's more into Simon. Um, and then Simon or Evan, still mad at Simon, is talking to him in class, gets in trouble again. So he's very, very mad at Simon. But they used to be friends. The class, but after the class, Evan runs up to Simon and he's all excited because their favorite teacher, Mr. Poe, has finished his video game. It's a virtual reality thing that Poe, who is apparently smart enough that the scene is interrupted by the president calling him, and he says he doesn't want to get involved in government. I forget why he says it's probably funny, but Simon is going to be the first person to try his virtual reality thing, and he says your brain controls the game because you're going to go into a virtual reality world. He offers he could go into space, he could go into medieval times, not the restaurant, but actual medieval times, or he could go to the time of the dinosaurs. And I think he picks going back to knights. The helmet has goggles, and Simon then wakes up, but in his bed at home. And he's disappointed. He thinks he's been dreaming, but soon he realizes he can hear his family, but he can't see them, nor can they apparently hear or see him. And he gets all confused. He goes to school. There's people walking backwards, and it's all confusing. But before that, he's still in his house. He goes into his dad's office because he thinks he hears his dad's voice in there. He goes in, and he starts talking to the chair that's facing away from him. And the chair turns around, and the embodiment of the virus comes out. It's kind of a silver face brain cap with cleave down the middle, and very silver, metallic silver with hints of red, played very memorably by Paul Cagelet, and look up pictures of this character, the Renegade virus, Paul Cagelet, because it's a really freaky monster, and has for a hand has one not what we currently would refer to as a USB port, but one of the more old-fashioned ones that's kind of it's a trapezoid, and it's got a bunch of holes, 2 rows of holes. One of them has 5 holes, one of them has 4 holes, or there was a longer one. I don't remember. I guess it used to be. I guess it's all under the category of USB, but this is a USB from, I guess, way back in the early 90s when I was taking apart and putting together, not computers, but like if you wanted to use a computer, you had to hook up the hard drive to the screen and to the keyboard, and you had these kinds of, and this guy's hand is one of them, and he wants to plug it into Simon's palm, which grows one of those things because he wants to download himself into Simon's head, thereby getting out of the computer and cyberspace and all that. Serial port, I think, is one of the things that it could be called, but I think it's all under the umbrella of USB. So Simon, of course, doesn't want to do this, and here we get to the running around, but he's running around at school, and no one can see him again. No one can see, except at one point there's the classic dreaming about class, and then suddenly you're in your underwear. People can see him at that point. Evan has his girlfriend, and let's see. I wrote down Poe will not be insulted. Oh, so he thinks he's come out of the game. And so he says to Poe, something's gone wrong, and Poe says, I will not be insulted. And he later has a conversation with Evan by way of some kind of thing. I don't know how that worked, how that was supposed to work. but apparently Evan planted the virus and wanted to make sure that Simon went in, and that was his prank to get back at Simon for what he had done. And he doesn't seem too concerned that Simon is in danger of having a virus downloaded into his brain, and won't give him the code to get out of the simulation until Simon apologizes. And at that point, you just apologize whether you mean it or not, so that you get out of danger. But Simon doesn't for some reason. He wants to get the code without apologizing, or he wants Evan to be willing to do it without having been apologized to. That, I guess, childish is appropriate because they are children. So it kind of works, but and it creates some tension. Simon eventually does figure it out right before the virus, the Renegade virus, reveals his very creepy USB port hand, and his temples start to throb. But Simon figures out the code, manages to hit the button. The monster suffers somewhat his defeat, and then Simon is out. And Poe apparently doesn't know that Evan and Simon communicated while Simon was in there. I don't know how Evan did it. Maybe it was with the virus was the message that, and Simon just found it. But in case I didn't say this back when I first started describing the monster Renegade virus, that's how I knew. When he appeared, suddenly a lot of images from this episode flooded my mind. Mostly images of him being scary. And then when he before he took off his glove, I thought, oh, I remember. Oh, right, he's got the cord hand. So yes, so that's the end, or is it? Because the virus, we see the virus's gloved cord hand reach up out of the janitor's trash can. Now, how he got out of the computer and into the janitor's trash can, I don't know. It doesn't explain. It doesn't have to. Anyway, Gary then talks about the virus on his computer and how it might get to someone else's computer, and then Tucker runs away because he's got to make sure his computer's okay. So that's those episodes. A good pair. Last episode of season 3, first episode of season 4. The next episodes in line are The Tale of the Long Ago Locket, and I think I remember that one, and The Tale of the Water Demons, and I think I have some memory of that one. There's one coming up, I won't scroll to it because I don't want to, that I definitely remembered. So, into season 4, which is the penultimate season of the original run, and I'm looking forward to continuing this little experiment even when it's no longer October/Halloween month. Pleasant dreams, everyone.